Save the trees, not by protesting, but by buying them. One group is taking that to heart. What's in the news with stories on Amber Guyger update, cop fired for working with the feds, stolen votes, school active shooter drill, can't find enough replacement cops, Florida town stealing a man's home, and murder FBI stats. Finally, in Ask Me Anything, where I answer your questions on secession, too many pets, my favorite tool, and libertarians taking handouts. This episode is brought to you by Health Excellence Plus, a health share that has saved my family thousands of dollars and can save you money too. Also brought to you by ForkFest, the annual decentralized libertarian camping event that happens around PorcFest, with no tickets and no one in charge. Also brought to you by my dozens of supporters.
Welcome to The Lava Flow, channeling the flow of information to the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and agorist community. Find us at thelavaflow.com. Here's your host, Roger Paxton.
Thank you for joining me this week. From the state founded in 1622 by Captain John Mason, this is the show where I shoot from the lip to bring you the people, places, and events that everyone in the Liberty Rebellion needs to know. You can catch me on Twitter at @TheLavaFlowPod. This is episode 140, Save the Trees by Buying Them. And it's Tuesday, October 8th, 2019, when there have already been more than 615 people killed by police this year, and the United States stat clock shows us at more than $22,780,700,000,000 in debt. What's rustling my jimmies this week? You're about to find out. Let's do it to it. You know, we don't hear it as much as we used to, but when I was a kid, the mantra was always, save the trees. And make no mistake about it, when they said save the trees, they didn't mean they wanted to save the trees. They meant they wanted the force of government to step in and use force by stealing people's land to save the trees. I always found it funny that the people who would protest to save the trees always used signs with their catchy slogans. I guess they all missed the irony that they were literally holding up a dead, cut-down tree with the words, save the trees on them. As the meme says, humans are the only creatures in this world who cut down the trees, make paper from them, and then write, save the trees on them. Could they have at least used something else for their signs? I don't have anything against trees, but they're useful, and they are replenishable. But I say save the trees too, because we need them to hang politicians who have robbed us blind. In any case, I don't think those protesters saved a single tree. And with their signs made of trees, they were actually a net loss for trees with their protests. Instead of coming together, pooling their money, and buying a shit ton of trees, they took the easier traveled road of protesting. Fast forward to today. I guess environmentalists and conservationists decided to do just that. A Bay Area conservation group struck a deal to buy and to protect the world's largest remaining privately owned sequoia forest for $15.6 million. Only one catch. Now they need to raise the money. The San Francisco-based Save the Redwoods League negotiated for the past 20 years for the purchase of Alder Creek, a 530-acre hillside grove that houses 483 trees with a trunk diameter of more than 6 feet, including the 3,000-year-old stag tree, the world's 5th largest tree. Sam Hodder, president of Save the Redwoods League, said, "This is probably the most coveted sequoia conservation opportunity in a generation. This is an alpine landscape covered with iconic, breathtaking cinnamon bark trees that are surrounded by pastures. It is such a superlative representation of nature. This is the price. This is the best of what's left. It's a very special place." Now, the Save the Redwoods League needs to raise the requisite money for the purchase by the end of the year. Hodder went on to say in a press release, "Alder Creek is the most consequential giant sequoia conservation project of our lifetime. It's the largest remaining giant sequoia property in private ownership and a globally unique and extraordinarily beautiful landscape. To fully protect this remarkable grove forever, we will need the public's help in raising the required funds by December 31st, 2019. I am pleased to announce that we have a challenge grant in place to help us achieve that goal." Save the Redwoods announced that an anonymous donor pledged a dollar-to-dollar match for every donation made before December 31st, up to $500,000. The Rauch family has owned Alder Creek Grove since the 1940s. Although it is privately owned, it has remained publicly accessible. Claude Albert Roach initially bought the land for its logging potential. The family cut down pine, fir, and other trees for lumber, but left the sequoias fairly unscathed. While there was significant logging, the grove still contains mature red fir, white fir, ponderosa pine, and sugar pine, as well as meadows and wetlands, which makes conservation of the grove a top priority for Save the Redwoods League. Last year, the Save the Redwoods League purchased Red Hill, a 160-acre property in the Sierra Nevadas that is one of the 2 largest unprotected giant sequoia forests in the world, after raising $4 million. Finally, some conservationists willing to put their wallets where their mouths are. Look, I applaud the efforts of this group. I'm no bleeding heart liberal by any means, but as a backpacker, I do love me some nature. I even sent these guys $25 just for this project. I know that's nothing in the grand scheme of the $16 million they need to raise, but hell, if people don't support these sorts of efforts, these efforts won't continue. This is a much better alternative than government-owned and protected land by a long way. I trust these bleeding heart liberals way more than I trust the government with this beautiful resource. This is truly private property for the win. If you want to protect something, whether it be a rare baseball card, a puppy dog, or a forest, don't steal it. Don't have the government steal it. Buy it and preserve it. A big thank you to Save the Redwoods League, and good luck.
What's in the news? The news you need to know from a libertarian perspective.
In Bad Boys Update, Amber Guyger, the cop who killed Botham Jean in his own apartment, was found guilty of murder. The 31-year-old was convicted for the September 6, 2018 slaying of 26-year-old Botham Jean in a case that prompted mass protests in Dallas against racial bias and police use of excessive force. Jean, a 26-year-old accountant at PricewaterhouseCoopers, was sitting on his couch eating vanilla ice cream around 10 p.m. when Guyger entered his apartment and shot at him twice, one bullet hitting the wall behind Jean and another fatally striking his chest. Guyger said that she'd confused his apartment for her own and believed he was an intruder, shooting at him in self-defense. Crazily enough, the defense tried to use castle doctrine as a defense, even though Amber Guyger was not in her own castle, but in the castle of the man that she killed. Guyger was given 10 years in prison for killing an unarmed man in his own apartment. The jury was allowed to consider whether Jean's death was the result of sudden passion, which meant Guyger acted in the heat of the moment. Now look, let's forget that this woman was a cop. She was off duty and headed home when this happened. Yes, she was wearing a uniform, but this was not an in-the-line-of-duty shooting. Let's look at her like a private citizen. With that being the case, I think this is a pretty fair result. While she didn't mean to kill this man, her actions did lead directly to his death. If this happened to you or me, I think we would have seen a similar result, as we should have. I'm happy to see justice done in this case. In good cop news, Fairfax County, Connecticut Police Chief Edwin C. Rossler, Jr. said he suspended an officer who cooperated with federal deportation officers by turning over an illegal immigrant he encountered during a traffic stop, a move the chief said violated department policy. Chief Rossler didn't identify the officer but said he deprived a person of their freedom by cooperating with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. The chief called that unacceptable. He said in a statement, "Our county is one of the most diverse counties in the nation, and no one should have the perception that FCPD is acting as a civil immigration agent for ICE. This matter damages our reputation and the long-standing policy that I have stated many times that our officers shall not act as immigration agents." The chief said the officer was working a traffic accident in the Huntington section of the Virginia County on September 21st and came across someone without a driver's license. When the officer ran his name, it returned a flag from ICE, which said the immigrant was a fugitive after failing to appear for a deportation hearing. The county's system confirmed the warrant. The officer called, and an ICE employee responded. Chief Rossler said the county officer should not have detained the immigrant to turn over to ICE. He said that move broke department policy, which tells officers not to bother to confirm administrative warrants through the county system. The majority of administrative warrants are from ICE. ICE did not respond to a request for comment, but the agency's acting director last week used a press conference at the White House to complain about communities that refuse to cooperate with its deportation officers. Wah. It's about time that local states stood up to the feds on these sorts of issues. My only regret is that this didn't happen in New Hampshire. As most of you know, I was laid off from my 9-to-5 director of IT job last summer. Among the many terrifying things about losing your job is losing your health benefits. Our family went about 6 months without any kind of health insurance, and the anxiety and worry that came along with that was not insignificant. But after spending dozens of hours researching our options and quickly rejecting the $2,000 a month price tag that came with the options available with traditional insurance, we found Health Excellence Plus, a health share that was a fraction of the cost, and we're glad we did. Only a few weeks after joining as members of this health share program, my wife was diagnosed with a common skin cancer that requires an expensive procedure to remove the cancer and another surgery to repair the damage done from the cancer removal. When this is all said and done, Health Excellence Plus will have saved our family thousands of dollars, and I'll bet they can save you money too. Health Excellence Plus is a health share that meets the requirements of the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. A health share is a community of like-minded, health-focused members who have joined together to share each other's medical costs above an amount they can comfortably afford. A health share is not traditional health insurance. It is designed to be a catastrophic coverage for major items, like my wife's surgery. The cost of an average family insurance policy for a primary 45 years old with a $5,000 deductible is $1,450 per month. A Health Excellence Plus $500 initial insurable amount with a healthcare strategy is only $783. Get started saving money today at thelavaflow.com/health. That's thelavaflow.com/health. In your vote doesn't count news, Sharika Hawkins was charged with 6 felony counts for allegedly altering absentee ballots during the November 2018 election in her capacity as city clerk for the Detroit suburb of Southfield, Michigan. Hawkins, a 38-year-old registered Democrat, stands accused of altering 193 absentee ballots. She was arraigned on charges including falsifying returns or records, forgery of a public record, misconduct in office, and multiple counts of using a computer to commit a crime. She was released on $15,000 bond. The alleged misconduct was discovered after the Oakland County Clerk's Office noticed that 193 voter files had been changed to reflect that the voters failed to include a valid signature or return date, when all of the implicated voters had in fact included both items. The county clerk's office later discovered the original voter files in the trash at the Election Division office. The Michigan State Police then launched an investigation that resulted in Hawkins' arrest. Hawkins, who makes $101,500 per year, typical bureaucrat, has been placed on paid administrative leave, pending the outcome of her trial. The Michigan Democratic Party honored Hawkins this year with the prestigious Dingle Levin Award at its annual Legacy Dinner in Detroit, and she was included in the Mission Chronicler's 40 Under 40 list in 2017. Hawkins, who has overseen a total of 16 elections in Oakland County, began working in government in 2010 as a deputy city clerk for the city of Pontiac, according to her LinkedIn profile. She was serving as the Pontiac city clerk when Democrat Gary Peters won a very tight congressional race against Republican Rocky Ruskowski in the state's 9th congressional district in November 2010, the same election cycle that Republicans overwhelmingly reclaimed the House majority. Peters, who has since been elected to the Senate, bested Ruskowski by just 6,405 votes out of a total of almost 250,000 votes. Michigan Rising Action, a local branch of the conservative advocacy group America Rising, is now calling for a sweeping investigation into all of the elections that Hawkins has overseen in her nearly 10-year career, as they should. The group hopes to see the Michigan Board of Elections appoint an independent auditor to examine the entirety of Hawkins' professional record to ensure that previous election results weren't tainted. And they should, since voter fraud is rampant in Michigan. Detroit City Janice Winfrey's office was audited by the state in 2017 after election supervisor discovered discrepancies between ballot boxes and voting totals in nearly 60% of the city's precincts. 1 year earlier, during the 2016 presidential election cycle, voting machines in more than one-third of Detroit's precincts registered more votes than the number of registered voters in those precincts. So guys, keep telling yourself that your vote counts. Stop legitimizing these bastards. Stop legitimizing hate, murder, corruption, slavery, and theft. Stop voting for your rulers. In Bad Boys Indoctrination Center's news, police officers outside of Dayton, Ohio unsheathed their weapons and fired blanks in Franklin High School as part of an effort to prepare students for a possible active shooter. What the actual fuck? The planned drill unnecessarily ratcheted up the intensity of school lockdown procedures, which routinely require students and teachers to barricade themselves in their classrooms. That the exercise was potentially traumatizing was not lost on the officials who planned it, as they all came equipped with social-emotional activities, as well as counselors who could talk with any disturbed teens. They knew exactly what the fuck they were doing. Lieutenant Jerry Massey said, "There was a concern, and it did cause some stress among parents and students." Senior Samantha Earnhardt, one such terrified student, said that she became very emotional and started to cry upon hearing the gunfire. In August, police fired off blanks at a high school in Long Island, New York, in response to a pretend shooter who banged on classroom doors while students and teachers hid. Elementary school teachers in Indiana were recently shot execution-style with plastic pellets, causing many of them to bruise. And a Florida Code Red exercise last year was marketed to students as the real deal. "This is not a drill," a school administrator announced over the intercom during the drill, sending some students into an emotional frenzy as they texted their parents goodbye. Fuck these people. Whether or not such exercises actually prepare people for active shooters remains to be seen, says James Allen Fox, the Lippman Family Professor of Criminology, Law, and Public Policy at Northeastern University. But they almost certainly stoke paranoia around an already fraught issue. Fox said, from 2013 to 2018, 40 students were fatally shot by an assailant in school, averaging 6.7 a year out of 55 million schoolchildren. That includes the Parkland and Santa Fe shootings, which took 17 and 10 lives respectively. He contrasts that with the students' fatalities that occur while children commute to school, bicycle and bus crashes, for instance, which average about 30 a year. Maybe they should focus on real problems. The overblown approach to shooter drills might actively make schools less safe. Fox notes that some students find the exercises extremely upsetting, traumatizing, and fear-provoking, while others still think they're not that big of a deal. But then there's another group of students, he says, who find it all too thrilling, increasing the likelihood that they'll perpetuate something similar. Now this is just disgusting behavior by both the police department and the school for allowing it. Sowing fear and terror in people to supposedly make them safer is not the job of police. It's the job of politicians, and they do it so well. Fuck the police involved here and the school district in the neck with fired blanks. In more good cop news, police agencies across the country are having trouble keeping and hiring police officers, according to a new survey obtained by ABC News. Produced by the Police Executive Research Forum, the survey shows a triple threat for police departments. There is a decrease in applications, early exits, and higher rates of retirement. Agencies participating in the survey reported that there has been a 63% decrease in applying to become a police officer. Departments are also having trouble hiring non-white minority applicants the most, followed by female officers, according to the survey. More officers are also leaving the profession between 1 and 5 years on the job, and experienced police officers are retiring at a faster rate than ever before, further depleting the ranks. There have been some proactive approaches to broaden the pool of qualified applicants. For example, some agencies have relaxed their hiring standards, especially with respect to education levels, because that's what we need is more dumb cops, prior drug use, tattoos, and facial hair. Some of these changes, such as eliminating prohibitions on most tattoos, are basically reflections of broader changes in societal norms that agencies must adapt to, the report explains. Now look, this is excellent news all around. I would love to see police departments in the country understaffed to the point where one of two things has to happen. Either they have to reprioritize their force to actually doing actual police work and going after criminals who have left an actual victim, or they begin outsourcing to private security firms that can be held more accountable for their actions. Either one of these results is a win for me, and it means that the people come out ahead. I had the awesome pleasure of joining liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians for the third annual ForkFest in June in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire, and I had a blast. I've now been to all 3 ForkFests, and I don't plan on missing a single one. This year, the event at least tripled in size from last year, with tons more people there and several food vendors. ForkFest is a decentralized camping event where no one is in charge. This means there is no ticket cost to attend the event. This also means that you are free to create whatever experience or event you want or would like others to enjoy. You can connect with other ForkFesters via the unofficial Telegram chat or the ForkFest forum at the unofficial website forkfest.party. That's forkfest.party. Keep an eye out for the dates for next year's event, which will likely be in late June. I hope to see you at ForkFest next year. In You Don't Own Your Own House news, a Florida retiree's uncut lawn may cost him his house. The city of Dunedin, Florida really wants Jim Ficken's house. Last year, the 69-year-old retiree left town to attend to his dying mother and then to sort out her estate. While he was away, he left a handyman in charge of his property. In a Shakespearean twist, the handyman also died, leaving Ficken's lawn unmowed and the municipality perturbed. Fickens returned home, learned that he was in violation of Dunedin's tall grass ordinance, and mowed his lawn 2 days later. The city then held a hearing at which it decided to retroactively fine Ficken for each day that his grass had exceeded 10 inches in height. Because he had let his grass grow too tall once before in 2015, Dunedin deemed him a repeat violator and doubled his fine daily from $250 to $500. The total damage? Over $29,000. Ficken, who is on a fixed income, can't pay the city. In the sane world, his explanation for neglecting the lawn and the fact he remedied the problem promptly upon being informed of it by a code inspector would settle this matter. But Dunedin, a picturesque beach town on Florida's Gulf Coast, has threatened to foreclose on Ficken's home to get the money that it claims it is owed. Ficken, who is being represented by the Institute for Justice, is now suing the city in order to protect his house at In the Saga. In his lawsuit filed in May, Ficken argues that Dunedin's practice of imposing such large fines with such extreme consequences without providing notice before applying such classification and without advising of the consequences of such a classification violates the due process clauses of both the U.S. and Florida constitutions. Unfit to fucking exist. Since no statutory cap exists on the total amount in fines that can be levied for petty violations, Ficken believes the city's threats also violate the excessive fines clauses of the U.S. and federal constitutions. Taking someone's house for having overly tall grass for a few weeks seems, on its face, excessive and unreasonable. It appears that Dunedin has resorted to such tactics in order to raise revenue. Well, of course they have. From 2007 to 2017, Dunedin's take from code enforcement fines increased nearly 20-fold, from $34,000 per year in 2007 to $703,000 in 2017. The city can pay its employees salaries out of such cash, giving those employees a motive to act punitively. The city had the option, while Ficken was out of town, to mow his lawn and bill him for the service. But instead, the city chose the path leading to the attempt to seize his home. Of course they did. Institute for Justice lawyers wrote, "A fine of $30,000 and the loss of one's home are excessive because they are both unreasonably harsh and so oppressive as to shock the conscience of reasonable men." Look, I respect the hell out of the work that the IJ does, but come on. Are they really naive enough to think that our rulers are reasonable? Or that since they have all the power, that they will ever act reasonably? Rulers have been robbing us peasants for as long as human history, and they will continue to until people stop asking to be ruled. In Ban All the Things news, according to the FBI, more than 5 times as many people were killed in 2018 by knives, clubs, and other cutting instruments than with rifles. The metrics show that there were a total of 1,515 deaths by knives or other cutting instruments last year. Compare that against 297 killed by rifles. It's a gap that widened significantly over 2017. In that year, the FBI said nearly 4 times as many people were stabbed to death as killed with rifles. During that year, the number of murders with rifles was around 400. But it gets even better. More than 100 more people were killed with hammers and clubs in 2018 than were killed by rifles. There were 443 people killed with hammers, clubs, and other blunt objects. We need to point out that the data isn't just semi-automatic rifles. It's all rifles, including bolt-action, pump, or lever-action rifles as well. If you want to contrast the numbers between just semi-automatic rifles and knife homicides, the gap would be even larger. Now here's another number that will blow your mind. The data also shows that in 2018 there were 672 deaths from fists, feet, and other personal weapons, which is once again more than with rifles. In 2017, there were 692 people killed in the same way, a number larger than the total number of homicides by rifles and shotguns combined. Remember this, when the Democrats continue calling for so-called assault rifles, including your AR-15 and AK-47s, to be banned. Tell them to ban fists and feet first, or they are just a bunch of fucking hypocrites.
Ask me anything. Roger will answer your questions about, well, anything. Do you have a question for Roger? Email ama@thelavaflow.com or add your question to the latest AMA thread in the Pax Libertas Productions Facebook group.
It's that time again. I'm going to answer your burning questions. Remember, you can ask me your question by adding it to the thread that I post in the Pax Libertas Productions Podcast Fans Facebook group or by emailing me directly at ama@thelavaflow.com. Or if you're awesome as fuck and you support this show, you can ask me your question in the Lava Flow Super Supporters Facebook group or on Patreon. So let's jump into the questions. If you recall, I mentioned that one of my supporters sent in 13 questions to the AMA. So first, I'm going to knock out a couple more of his. First, Drake L asks, what 5 states would you want to secede from the U.S. first and why? For example, would you want to kick out California so they can fail on their own without dragging down the rest of the country? Or just free the freest states like New Hampshire and Texas? Well, first, obviously, I would love to see New Hampshire secede, primarily because I live here and I want the feds out of my life completely. But that's a no-brainer. After that, it really makes no difference to me who leaves next, but for the sake of argument, I would go with California. I mean, they've had a strong secession movement for many years, so I'd love to see them gone, or at least split up. After that, another state with a huge secession movement for a long time, like you mentioned, has been Texas, and I would love for all of my Texas friends to be free from the feds as well. Frankly, Texas is too big, too, and should likely split up along regional lines. After that, I really can't say. Let's be honest here, the country's too big as it is, and too diverse for it to be one single country. People in New Hampshire are not anything like people in Texas or California, or even Massachusetts for that matter. This is part of what leads to the sorts of major divisions the politicians are able to take advantage of in this country. If the governed areas were smaller, the government would be more representative of the people in that area, supposedly. While this is still government, and they would still be rulers, at least they would be local rulers with local whips and chains, right? Well, of course not. My hope is that as governments become smaller, though, some areas would remove government altogether as an experiment. I can hope, right? Drake's next question is, how many pets is too many? You know, this number is a personal number, and it's different for everyone. As far as I'm concerned, you should be free to have as many pets as you want. The caveat to that is that you should be able to provide care for all of them. If you have too many animals to provide care for, then that's too many. I mean, I personally have 2 dogs, 3 guinea pigs, and 35 chickens right now, and we're probably going to be getting a bunch more chickens in the spring. Thanks for the questions, Drake. It looks like I'm down to only 4 more questions from you, and then I'm through them all. Eric H. asks, what is your favorite tool? My favorite tool is the best tool for the current project that I'm working on, whatever that may be. I've amassed a much larger assortment of tools over the last couple of years for this exact reason. For years, I always tried just getting by with as few tools as possible, and then I would always become frustrated when I was working on some project trying to get by with those tools. As soon as I started buying the right tool for a job, the much less frustrated I became. It's incredible the difference that it's made in my projects. I've done more building and projects this year than I ever have in my life, and I chalk a lot of that up to having the right tool for the jobs I'm doing. My next big tool purchase, though, will be a chainsaw, because I've got several trees here that I need to bring down in the spring, so wish me luck. Thanks for the question, Eric. Goulardi asks, how can liberty-loving, statist-hating people justify within ourselves the receipt of benefits, whether directly monetary, SNAP, EBT, SSI, Medicare, Medicaid, or even the less direct gifts of the roads, the post office, the airports, the electric grid, park spaces, and all the rest, even if some from only semi-agents of government or NGOs? I'm struggling with this daily, as the time is looming when Medicare will be expected and SSI will be available as well, and there is real pressure at home to collect. I know the at-home part is my problem, but internally it all seems like a big hypocrisy to say one thing and do another. Thanks for the question, Gardy. I wouldn't be too concerned about the hypocrisy of it. First of all, it's your money. You've been paying into this for years, but, Ayn Rand still gets a lot of shit for this today, even from libertarians, for being a hypocrite and that she did take her Social Security when it came time. Take away the fact that technically it's almost impossible to refuse the payments. You could refuse the cash to check, I guess, or you could return the money to the government if you chose. I had a friend in Arkansas who considered his SSI check to be blood money, and he used that check. He put it in a separate checking account, specifically to use it only to give charitable donations to organizations he believed in, like the Libertarian Party of Arkansas and my campaign and many other organizations. Personally, I don't consider there to be anything wrong with getting your money back from the government in any way that you can, whether it be by cheating on your taxes or taking benefits. You've paid into that system all your life. If you had kept that money, I bet you could have done a million things better with it than the government. But the fact is, they stole it from you with a gun to your head. Take your money back if you can. The more money we take from the government, the less money they will have to do despicable things with. Period. Guys, thanks for all the questions. Thanks for listening to the show this week. As always, I need to thank my favorite beach bum, Jessica, for her help with the show. For the show notes to this episode, where I put links and other information that's been on the show, go to thelavaflow.com/140. I don't have any new supporters this week, but several people switched their pledge from Patreon to my own support plan. Thank you so much, guys. So thanks to all of my awesome supporters. I am now at $232.25 per episode, or 46.5% of the way towards my next goal of $500 per episode. Thank you for all your support, guys, really. Remember, when I hit this next goal, I'll be upping the content I bring you from half an hour per week to a full hour. I know you want more content from me, and I want to give it to you. So add your pledge today to help me bring you twice the lava flow that you're getting today. So exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a donation of as little as $1 a week using Federal Reserve notes through my site or using cryptocurrencies through Bitbacker. I want to be able to bring you more content soon, so make sure to add your donation today to help make that happen. I also don't have any new reviews since my last episode, but if you have a minute and you want to hear your review read right here on the show, please go to thelavaflow.com/Apple and leave me a rating and a review. All the cool kids are doing it. Thank you to everyone who's left me a rating and a review so far. You guys rock. To all of you who haven't, can you guys help me out and go leave a review for me? Go to thelavaflow.com/Apple to do that now. Until next time, keep striking the root.
Thank you for listening to The Lava Flow at thelavaflow.com. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe now at thelavaflow.com/subscribe. This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.